Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to Watch What, and thanks for logging on. Today, we're looking at another one of Audemars Piguet's finest. You're looking at the Audemars Piguet Royal Oak Chronograph, reference 26320OR. 41 millimeters in alternately brushed and polished rose gold with a silver Grand Tapisserie dial. This watch is a real treat inasmuch as it includes a combination rarely seen on the traditional Audemars Piguet Royal Oak, and that's the pairing of beautiful colored gold with a chronograph function. Individually, each one is an exception in the Royal Oak series, as they tend to be time-only watches in steel, but together the effect is mesmerizing, only compounded by this beautiful, detailed tapisserie cut dial in silver. Now, I'm going to put this watch on the wrist and give you a sense of how it wears, but also a sense of how it feels in terms of mass. On my wrist, 6 1/3 inches, 16 centimeters in circumference, the watch has real presence, not just in the warm correspondence and complementary effect of the rose gold against the skin, but in the fact that it really does have substantial heft. Weighing in at almost half a pound, this is a very substantial timepiece, but still very thin, only 10.3 millimeters thick. On my wrist, 6 1/3 inches, 16 centimeters, I don't feel like I'm overwhelmed by the size of it. Although all Royal Oaks, because of the integrated bracelet and the tapered lugs, do wear larger than their nominal measurement, the ergonomic quality of the case, honed over more than 40 years, ensures that even if your wrist is under 6 inches in circumference, you're going to get a good fit. And because, frankly, colored gold just has so much visual power and impact, you're assured that no matter how large your wrist is, this watch is going to be the absolute center of attention, the star of the show. It is at no loss for size. Now, I will mention that as heavy as it is, you're going to be aware that it's there. It's not something that's going to irritate or unnerve. I consider it a privilege and a pleasure to wear a watch that feels, quite frankly, like Fort Knox on your wrist, and it looks the part. Now, a big part of that is the integration of a very nicely finished rose gold, almost red gold bracelet. I've always spoken of the finish on Royal Oak cases, bezels, and bracelets, and this one's no exception. Now, this is the latest reference, 2012 to present, so it has the 41 millimeter case, and the bracelet has been sized correspondingly to fit the taper of the lugs. So it actually spreads the mass even wider than the previous 39 millimeter bracelet, leading to a similar impression on the wrist. You really won't notice it except for the visual signature. Mass-wise, you don't. But the quality of the latest double deployant clasp really deserves a shout out. Multiple finishes, exceptional quality. When it closes with a solid snick with double deployant and twin trigger release. It's very secure. It feels like it was milled out from the solid. You almost get the sense that you're dealing with one of the latest Rolex Oyster clasps, but with a standard of finish, standard of materials, complication, and execution that's the hallmark of Audemars Piguet. Now, every part of this bracelet is aesthetically and ergonomically excellent. On the bottom, finished so that it doesn't pinch skin or pull hairs. On the top, finished to a degree of artisanal virtuosity that is unique in the industry. The Royal Oak bracelet, quite frankly, each link is a work of art. You can see the brushed tops. You can see how each one tapers in between and features a chamfer with high polish, hand executed on each flank. So you see the facets as I rotate it through the light, and you can see how this one really does catch the light in dramatic fashion on both the brushed as well as the polished. And there you can see the polish really lighting up, as well as the polished facets. Now, the degree of finish and attention to detail continues on the case in the chamfer of the flank from the hood to the case tops, and quite honestly, it's mesmerizing. It has the effect almost of the best skeleton dials or skeleton movements. The way you can get yourself lost in the gear train of a complicated movement, you get that same sense of wonder, that same beguiled sense of a captive imagination when you look at the case, the bezel, and the bracelet, especially of a gold Royal Oak. It's important to remember that the Audemars Piguet Royal Oak series was originally designed to give the visual impact of precious metal in a finely finished steel case, and while AP's artisans succeeded in giving that base metal the same arresting, beguiling, captivating, charismatic appeal as precious metal, to combine that standard finish with actual colored gold is, quite frankly, almost a bit overwhelming. This is a lot of watch. In terms of its visual signature, if you want a watch that's going to be seen and make a statement, this could very well upstage an offshore. In fact, I would pretty much guarantee that it will in almost all cases. And a big part of that is just how fine the case is. It's visible, but it's also traditional in as much as it's very thin, almost an ultra thin, just over 10 millimeters thick. Now, the bezel, traditional octagonal Audemars Piguet Royal Oak, features the same finishing sequence that you'll see on the steel watch. So brushed on the hood, polished on its flanks, beautiful definition within each portion of the 8 sides, designed to resemble the porthole of traditional British Royal Navy warships, including a succession that were in fact named Royal Oak. You can see the nautical influence, and this is a sports watch after all, or at least sporting in character. Another significant traditional element, here acting as a gold contrast, are the inset hexagonal Royal Oak bezel bolts. Now, originally designed to contrast with the brushed stainless steel of the original bezel, here the white gold inset bolts with their high polish contrast with the brushed rose gold, and they segue beautifully into the dial itself. Now, Audemars Piguet starts the level of detail and craft with a fully polished bezel interior wall. You can see how it really lights up and visually extends the interior of the dial space. Now, the indices themselves are longer on the post-2012 variant of the watch, which I have here. So there's more gold, there's more surface area of high polish with more facets to reflect the light. So this really explodes when you rotate it through natural or artificial light. It really doesn't distinguish. There are some watches that only come alive in sunlight. This is the kind of watch that can light up a room even in low lighting conditions. And a big part of that is the combination of the rose gold polished elements as well as this unique silvered tapisserie dial. And the lighter dial really complements the rose gold case quite nicely. This is the kind of watch you would wear to the pool on South Beach. This is the kind of watch you would wear out on the Santa Monica Pier. Any place by the water where high style and high visibility reign, this is the perfect watch. The Audemars Piguet Royal Oak Chronograph, reference 26320OR in rose gold. Now, the tapisserie dial features detailing that's better than ever. First of all, it's not just a hobnail or waffle cut. You can see that grid, but what you can't see so much on the iPhone, but you can see on our studio photos on our website, is that there are intermediate textures between each of these ridged sections. So they're not just channels, they're actually textured channels, and they have a character and a cut that's all their own that really adds close range visual interest to the dial and helps to make the composition as well as affect the reflection of light when seen in different lighting conditions. Now, each of the subdials does feature a fine rose gold chaptering around the exterior, as well as contrasting guilloche work within that makes them both more readable and effective complements to the overall composition. As ever, with the Piguet movement inside, you have the date window at 4:30. Plenty of complication, plenty of utility. Between the date, automatic winding, and the chronograph, this one's got basically all you need. Now, before I do talk about the chronograph movement itself, I want to show you the case back, because I get a lot of questions about the case back of non-display watches. There is no display case back. In fact, there is just more gold, which increases both the real value and the sense of heft of the watch. Gold, let's remember, is worth more and weighs more than sapphire. But what's inside is a Piguet 1185 movement finished to Audemars Piguet's own standards by Audemars Piguet's own artisans. Just as the bezel, the case, and the bracelet are extensively elaborated, decorated, finished, and prepared for final consumption by Audemars Piguet's artisans, all veterans of the trade, all at the top of their game. The movement itself, which arrives in parts from Frederic Piguet's nearby facility, is finished to Audemars Piguet's standards, and an ultra-thin automatic winding vertical clutch column wheel movement. It's the perfect choice. It's also what you'll find in the Vacheron Constantin Overseas Chronograph, and we're going to have a comparo coming up, but the bottom line is it's a thin, fine, and historically significant high horology movement that adds a lot of value to any watch it powers. Shared with Audemars Piguet, it's been featured in high-end Harry Winston pieces, Vacheron Constantin, and Blancpain. So if you're going to welcome someone into the family, AP, welcome the best, and they definitely do that with the Piguet chronograph movement. Now, this Audemars Piguet Royal Oak Chronograph, reference 26320OR, 41 millimeters in rose gold, can be seen in high-resolution images on our website, Watch You Want.